um, on business-related information, which is actually a very difficult thing to know about neighborhoods. And if you guys need anything from us, the BINA staff is in the background to help, and have a great workshop. Thanks again, Ms. Reen.
Thank you, Seema, for having me. Good morning, everyone. Very glad to be here today. And let me just make sure I correctly share my screen for you. Give me just a moment. Okay. And I am sharing screen.
Yep, there we go.
You can see my PowerPoint?
Not yet. You're just showing your Zoom screen.
Okay. Let me try that again.
And just so you know who's in the room, we have folks from the public sector, university, nonprofit organizations, and community leaders so far. Did you want to share your screen now?
Yes, if it lets me. How is that?
Yep, so that is the actual PowerPoint, and then if you want to share the full slideshow, you have to reshare it again.
I've just never used Zoom before, if you could believe that.
The federal government wasn't allowed to use Zoom for a while, so.
Yeah, we're not allowed to. We're allowed to if someone else hosts, but I haven't had the situation come up yet. And we only recently got that provision. So let's try. Nope, that's not it. Let's try that. Nope, that's not it. Let's try that. Okay, I think I got it.
Yep, you got it. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Seema. So good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Nesreen Khashan. I'm actually the branch chief for the Community Partnership and Engagement Program. You may have seen our partnership specialists in your community during the 2020 census, and of course all that has powered down, and now we're, believe it or not, getting ready for 2030. But I'm here today to talk to you about the Census Business Builder, but I'm going to do it by also introducing you to the portal from which you can access the CBB, the Census Business Builder. Is the Census Bureau Data Equity Tool. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that as well. So the Census Business Builder is a super user-friendly way to get data, demographic and economic data, to help you make decisions about growing or starting your own small business. Before I start, I'll just make a really quick statement. If anyone's wondering, we are releasing we did release in April apportionment data, the state level counts for all states in the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. In the August-September timeframe of this year, we'll be releasing the rest of the data, including the redistricting data from the 2020 census. You can expect to see, where population, and it's inevitable really that change will happen, has expanded or contracted. You may also expect to see a new tiger shape files as census tracts are redrawn to reflect the population changes in your community. And then also don't forget that the decennial data are the only data for which you can get data at the most granular geographic level we have at the Census Bureau, which is the block level, which of course in a city like Baltimore could literally be as small as a city block. So with that, let me go ahead and give you an overview of today's agenda. I mentioned I wanted to first kind of give you a test drive of the Data Equity Tools portal. I'll show you very briefly at a super high level the Opportunity Atlas, Community Resilience Estimates. There are about 5 tools on the Data Equity Tools site, not exhaustive, but all very easy to use tools. They're intended to get members of the public data with just a few clicks, and with those few clicks, a lot of insight. So little effort, lots of payback. That's the goal of the data equity tools. But the other goal of the data equity tools is also to help organizations better serve underserved communities. So, and the Census Business Builder, of course, is part of that grouping of tools we have on that site. So once I give you sort of the quick introduction to that portal and show you a couple of other tools, then we'll get right into the Census Business Builder. I'll talk about why the Census Business Builder exists and why you should care. And then we'll go over the tool itself. I'll talk about what's new and what new functionality you can see in later versions. You can see we're up to version 3.4 right now, and it is very much an iterative tool. So you can expect version updates, but don't worry, it'll still be there exactly where you found it. It'll just be, version 3.5 and so on as new features are added or fixes are made. So the learning objectives for today, by the end of the session, I hope to help you understand how data equity tools can help organizations reach and better serve underserved and vulnerable communities. Understand how Census Bureau data can help entrepreneurs grow or start a business, and also help you be able to access Census Bureau data for communities utilizing the publicly available tools on census.gov. So the data, this is a screenshot of the data equity tools portal. As I mentioned earlier, it provides links to 5 Census Bureau programs and tools that can be used to identify underserved communities and help ensure the equitable distribution of resources. You can see I've highlighted the 3. I'll give you a quick run through of today. I'll be more, obviously spend more time on CBB, but I'll show you very quickly Community Resilience Estimates and Opportunity Atlas. And I encourage you to check out all the apps on the Data Equity Tools page. So here's a screenshot of the Community Resilience Estimates page for the city of Baltimore. I'll take you there, but it essentially is it's basically measuring resilience, and resilience, of course, is just the ability to withstand and persevere through what some extraordinary events, such as a pandemic, such as a wildfire, natural disasters and the sort. The community resilience estimates are modeled, and they identify risk factors from 2 sources. One is the American Community Survey, and the other is the National Health Survey. And the risk factors are as follows. You can see them here: income to poverty ratio, households that are living, many people living in a household, limited English proficiency, unemployment, the prevalence of a disability, lack of health insurance, age 65 living alone. And then also the NHIS factors are heart disease, diabetes, and respiratory disease. And the data are available at the state, county, and tract level. The other tool I want to give you a quick tour of is the Opportunity Atlas. The Opportunity Atlas looked at a cohort of young people growing up from, I believe it's, and it'll come up when we go to the site. 1970, somewhere in the mid 70s through I think the early odds, but again, we'll go right to the site and it'll show the exact years. And it shows what outcomes you can expect for that cohort at age 35. So what income you could expect from them, their incarceration rate, and a host of other indicators. It's actually really interesting. It's super easy to use, just like the first tool, the Community Resiliency Estimates, and I would encourage you, even if you're not part of that cohort exactly, to just type your address when you're in there and see if it meshes with what your income was or what it is now if you happen to be around 35. If it speaks to your experience. So that's a really interesting tool to explore. And again, super intuitive, few clicks and lots of insight. So let me see if I can successfully toggle over to my browser to share with you and demo these two tools very quickly. So let me go back to stop share. I'm going to share again. And I'm going to go to, okay. So hopefully you can see census.gov. Okay, if anyone can't see it, just feel free to let me know. So this is where you would start, of course, and then you could browse by topic and you could explore data. If you explore data, I would go to Data Equity Tools. You can see it's loading, and you can see the 5 tools are here. So let's very quickly, again, before we go to CBB, Census Business Builder, look at Community Resiliency Estimates. So you could see here, it talks, there's an introduction about what resilience is. It's just a capacity, as I mentioned, to endure and recover from some environmental or health crisis. And this was actually created in the wake of COVID-19. It's under our experimental data program, and it's a real tribute to the agency that we were able to stand this up as quickly as we were. So as I mentioned, there are risk factors that are from the ACS and the National Health Survey. Super easy to use. Just type in your city, your state. You just move over to county profiles, start typing in your city. And it's important to state whenever I'm presenting to Baltimore folks, you are a county equivalent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get these data at the county level. But because you are a county equivalent, you're good to go. So here's Baltimore City. Here's your profile. And you could see of those risk factors I showed in the screenshot in the slide, about 37% of the residents on average in your city have risk factors, at least 3 risk factors of those that I showed you in that slide. 62% have at least 2 of those risk factors, and about 1% have 0 risk factors. So that's on average citywide, but then you can drill down to the tract estimates and see that all these are census tracts throughout your city that have that don't have zero that have 0 risk factors. And you can see there's, of course, many, because most have at least 1 risk factor. And then you can start looking at these. The X's are census tracts with at least 3 risk factors. So if I wanted to see, well, this is apparently the most vulnerable of all census tracts in my city, with at least 67% of population having 3 or more risk factors, where is that? So I simply click on it, and you can see that I can see where it is. It's identified very quickly for me on this map. So you can go through just like that. You can look at your 2 risk factors in the same fashion, and so on. So it's super intuitive to use. You can also view the dashboard, and the dashboard just takes a moment to load. That previous one was I believe a Tableau dashboard. This one is an Esri dashboard, but still super easy to use. You select your state, and here again you can see the risk factors identified from the NHIS and from the ACS, just as I displayed them. National Health Interview Survey, I forgot what the I was. Okay. So you can see them again on this bar, just explaining what these data are about. Of course, you can then select your county. And of course, Baltimore is a county equivalent, so you're good to go. And you can see that, though this for some reason is not loading. Okay, it's just taking a little longer. And you can see that the track data are available. And it's showing you essentially what you saw in the previous Tableau dashboard. 1% have 0 on average, 1% of your residents have 0 risk factors. 37% have, it's just a different sort of donut hole way of displaying the data you saw on the previous page. But here, what you can get that's also pretty useful is you can get a COVID-19 impact planning report. So right now, it's dynamic, and you can, of course, expand it. So you can see it's dynamic. So if you click on anything, you can get more information on whatever variable you're selecting. And it's 2 pages, and you can also, so you can go to page 2, and you can also download this and export this infographic. I think it's a PNG file. You can also download it. So yeah, so those are the community resilience estimates. Definitely worth checking out if this is something that interests you. Very quickly, again, I wanted to show you the Opportunity Atlas, and I have an address. Let me find it. If you just bear with me. One moment. I have it. Okay, so Opportunity Atlas. So the cohort that I mentioned, it's 1970. Oh, yeah, it's not the aught. Sorry about that. 1978 to 1983. So they focused on children born between 1978 and 83, including those born in the U.S. and the undocumented. And it represents, from that cohort, 94% of children born during that period. And again, super easy to use. It loads. It asks you to put in an address. It gives you 3 easy steps. You can read them very quickly that you can filter. But I'll put in the address of the University of Baltimore. You can see it right there. Zooms right into that tract, which is a nice feature. And you can see that here, the outcome, the variable that's being displayed rather is household income for that cohort. So that 78 to 83 cohort. Once that cohort reached the age of 35. So it's displaying 21,000 for those from that cohort who were from low income families. You can see I can move it over to middle. It goes up to 27,000, 34,000 for that cohort in that tract who grew up in that tract who came from high income. And then you can also look at it for all, the average for all, which is 23,000. You can also filter by race and for male and female. But low, the variables here will always be default to low, all, and all, unless you select one of these cross tabs. So you can also very easily change the variable. So you can see that there are a slew of other characteristics, not all of them from the Census Bureau data. You can see the second one after household income at age 35 is incarceration rate as of April 1st, 2010. And then again, you could filter again and see the differences in incarceration rate for that census tract. And you can do it by income range and see the variability. And then of course, you can also just pan around your screen and look at different variables. If someone grew up in even in a low income family up here in Baltimore County, their incarceration rate was less than 1%. So you can, of course, just play around and see the variability and see how where you grew up and what income that your parents had, what bearing it has on what happens thereafter. So I think it's a really I think compelling data tool to play around with, and I think one of the things you probably all want to do right away after this session is type in the address where you grew up and see if it jives. Like I said, I grew up in California in the Bay Area, and I was actually surprised by the accuracy. So that's Community Resilience Estimates, Opportunity Atlas. There's the Rome and LEHD, but I really wanted to get you to Census Business Builder. But before I do, let me get back to my slide deck. If you just bear with me.
And there was just a couple of questions in the chat. We were waiting for you to pause. So is there a way to look at the data in the Community Resilience Mapper that feeds into those risk factors? Like, is there a way to look at the actual data on that site?
Yeah, the risk factors are not displayed in the data because it's model data. Let's go back to it. Can you see my screen?
You're stopped sharing for now, but
okay.
Seeing it until just a minute ago.
Let me get back to.
And then the other question, which I think that Daniel was asking, was for whether the data is available for cities of a minimum number of residents, or can you do the analysis for all census tracts? And I think you mean, Daniel, for the community resilience stuff, because the Opportunity Atlas is for all census tracts. Is that correct?
The Opportunity Atlas is for all census tracts, but so are the community resilience estimates. So Daniel, your question, you can't get it for cities unless the city is a county equivalent. You can only get counties and census tracts. Does that answer your question?
Right. So you can click on the county that your city might be in order to look at the census tracts that are in your city, but it won't be just for the city.
Correct. And then I'm just double checking to make sure, but yeah, it doesn't look like the risk factors are identified when you click on in the community resilience estimates. So they may be identified. I haven't downloaded the data yet. It may be that when you download the data, they are, because you can download them as an Excel file. It may be that they're identified, but I don't know. I do not know. I've just downloaded the data and it's the same. It basically identifies whether, zero, 1 to 2 or 3 or more, even in the data download. So any other questions?
Not yet, but thank you. And we're just going to have people keep adding to the chat until the end, and then we'll have more of a Q&A towards the end.
Let me get back to sharing the screen then. Hopefully I've improved my ability to do this. Nope, that's not it.
And for those that were coming in after Nasreen began her talk, if you want to change your name and let us know who you are, or let her know who you are, we already probably know most of you, that would be great. If you go into participants and rename yourself with either your pronouns or your organization or your neighborhood, that would help.
Okay, so so now let's focus on the star of the show this morning, which is a Census Business Builder. And this slide just basically is why should you care? So the Census Bureau, obviously we know for the decennial we conduct every decade, but we conduct over 130 monthly, quarterly, annual, and periodic programs each year. But we find that our data users have little to no awareness of them, although I think this audience could be an exception. Entrepreneurs, business owners, and a variety of organizations who support them need high quality, reliable data to drive decisions, and these Census Bureau data programs can supply some of this. And it's worth saying that some of these programs are respondent driven. They're surveys we ask businesses and members, households, and some of them are model data. And you'll see increasingly the use of model data at the Census Bureau, and others are administrative data. So you'll see both the increased use of both model data and administrative data in our program. So not every program, in other words, is derived from respondents, although some are, and it's very important to raise awareness that you get a lot of bang for your buck when you agree to be a respondent in a Census Bureau survey, whether you're a business or a household, because you get amazingly valuable data that are updated frequently that can help power your decision making. So access to data can greatly affect its use, and a lot of people don't use our data. They're turned off by how hard it can be and how overwhelming it can be. But Census has been moving, certainly since my tenure in the last 12 years, toward providing dozens of incredibly powerful tools that are easy to use. Users often need to just need selected information for the research, and what they often find is an avalanche of data, and you're just so overwhelmed. So selecting and presenting key statistics is important to users. And so is having tools that merge data from across providers. So you saw, for example, that in the resiliency estimates, we combined ACS data with the National Health Interview Survey. So you can see even more vulnerability factors than the ACS can pick up. And that's increasingly also something that we're doing at the Census Bureau. And you'll see that again with the Census Business Builder when I get into demo mode. And then easy access to selected data can create a bridge to more detailed data that the user might need later. So you, of course, have this compounding effect where you learn about something and, of course, you want to learn more. So then you become, a hooked data user. So this is the a couple of screenshots for the Census Business Builder. There are 2 editions. There's the Regional Analyst edition and the Small Business edition. The guiding principles of this tool are that it's easy to use, it's about you, it's customer focused. It takes away a lot of the pain points we know are inherent to, or have been inherent to accessing our data. It provides data, access to census data, and also data from other sources, as I mentioned, BLS, USDA, and third party being Esri. Leverages existing census investments. We have strong relationships with Esri. We have an API. The data come to you via an API. It uses cloud technology, and of course, the data are available at no cost to the public. And you can see here the link to the page. And again, you can see the 2 splash pages to this is the Regional Analyst edition. This is the Small Business edition. So some of the features on the Small Business edition map page, you can see here, and we'll go live, but you can zoom in and out. It's an Esri map. It's super smooth, so it doesn't kind of get hung up the way sometimes some other browsers can get hung up, mapping browsers. You can change industries, you can change geographies just with these simple pull down menus. You can add up to 2 map variables that will be displayed on your map. And you can also filter. You have map buttons here, you have your legend here, you also have your dashboard here, and then in a very simple one-click motion, you can also create a report. You can also skip the map entirely and create a report straight from the splash page. We'll look at that in the demo. So here's a Small Business Edition report. You can configure content, you can manipulate charts, and again, it's super easy with one click, either on the splash page or on the map page. You can create this report. You can download this report. You can download the data if you want the data. And in the Regional Analyst edition, this is the map page. So what the Regional Analyst edition lets you do that's different from the Small Business edition is it lets you conduct an analysis for multiple geographies. They can be cities, they can be counties, and then it gives you, when you go to create report, it gives you the aggregate data for those 3 merged geographies, because you're essentially creating your own region. And I'll show you what that looks like. Just as an FYI, the Regional Analyst edition is at least ostensibly for chambers of commerce, economic development professionals, but I would argue that it also has uses for small business owners, and I'll give you a scenario when we go live. So you can see the Regional Analyst edition also lets you create a report with just an easy click, and you can also configure your contents and download your data. Your data on your both editions will not have MOE, so you have to opt into displaying your MOEs, which of course will give you a sense of how reliable the data are. So let's go ahead and switch to demo. And with that, I will stop sharing and share again, because now I'm getting the hang of Zoom, I think. All right.
There was one question which maybe you'll answer when you go to the demo about whether or not the data would include nonprofits as well.
Yes, data most certainly includes nonprofits, because they there's a NAICS code for nonprofits, and they still, produce economic activity. So there's NAICS code. NAICS, is North American Industry Classification System, and hospitals. A lot of hospitals and large healthcare systems are nonprofit, and they, goodness knows, they produce a lot of economic activity. Schools are in there. Nonprofits are in there, so there's NAICS codes for them because they may not be for profit, but they are creating a lot of economic activity. Any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So you can see we're back. And if I just back up to census.gov and remind you how we got here, we can go to Explore Data and Data Equity Tools. And then we have our data equity tools you've already seen at a super high level too. Let's go into the Census Business Builder. You'll see that when CBB launches, it's actually going to launch you, and I'm not sure why. I might actually email the people who are the custodians of the site. But it launches you directly to the Regional Analyst Edition. I would, if I were you, I would go to CBB homepage, and you can see the link is right here. It's good to start there because it just gives you an orientation. It tells you, hey, the Small Business Edition is primarily for small businesses. The RAE, Regional Analyst, is mainly for chambers of commerce and regional planning staff who need a broader portrait of the people and businesses in their service area. So then you get overview, instructional flyers, webinars. You get a lot of other resources related to the two versions of this app. And then you can launch the Small Business Edition from there. So I'll just give you, I'm using my little cheat sheet here. I'll give you a quick scenario. So I talked to you about NAICS codes already. And if you know a NAICS code number, you can put it in here. But what's great about this app is it's customer focused, and you don't have to. If you just know, if you've never heard of NAICS, but you want to open a bakery, you just tap through what looks intuitive. So food services obviously is what bakeries would fall under, and then you select bakery. So you do have to select your industry, but you don't have to know your NAICS codes. And then you can find my location. So if I click this, it'll peg me to Washington, D.C., even though I'm not quite in D.C., I'm just outside of it. But I'm going to go ahead and type a zip code, the zip code for University of Baltimore. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I could create a report with one click, but let's go ahead and show this map. So you can see here, just as you saw in the screenshot, that my industry is selected bakery, my location is zip code. I don't have to confine myself to zip code. I can toggle over to census tract, city, town, county, metro area, and state. But most people who are really novice data users, they know zip code. So that's why we offer this level of geography, to make it more relevant to users. So then you have map variables, right? So you can choose up to 2 map variables. And each time I come back to this app, they continue to add more and more variables, which is totally exciting to me, because there's so much from the ACS that can be relevant to a business owner, and there's so much from the economic program similarly. So if I'm opening a bakery, I probably want to go over to socioeconomic characteristics. I want to know the median household income. I mean, that's really where what's going to drive my business decisions. But I can pick up to 2 variables, but those aren't the only variables I can see. I can toggle among various variables, and I don't have to confine myself to just those 2. Another variable that might be important is people who work and commute to my area, because my bakery is going to be, where the place you stop in the morning on your way to the office. or you may want to look at labor force participation. And anytime, of course, there's a caret, you can also tap down and get more detail and look even in at more detailed aspects of commuters, for instance, in this case. And then I can even look at percentage who work from home, which we know, obviously, because of the pandemic, there's a higher prevalence of, because maybe I'm still expecting people who live around my bakery to stop in before they begin their workday at home. So I just simply select one variable, and I selected workers who commute. Then I can select another variable, and you could see, this always happens when I use it. Oh, it's just a little, there. There, okay, sorry about that. That little black box kind of threw me off. I could stick to socioeconomic characteristics. I could move to demographic. I could move to housing. I'm a bakery. If I were going into construction, I would go into housing. If I were going into childcare or senior care or, programs for tweens, or, I would maybe go to demographic characteristics. But socioeconomic characteristics is what I'm focusing on. And this time I'll select median household income. So now I've selected two variables. Again, they're not fixed. I can add more, look at others. And what I think is really nice in this recent enhancement, and we're at version 3.4, is that you can see together the two variables you picked. One is depicted by the bubbles here, and the other is depicted by the coloration. So the bubbles are showing, obviously, higher income. So maybe I want to pan out a bit and rethink my 2102. The income's not bad over there, but maybe I want to go for a higher income area like 21231. And then, of course, the other thing I want to look at is saturation, right? I mean, are there a lot of are there a lot of businesses already who are bakeries in my area? So maybe I want to look at key ratios. Actually, none of them are available, so never mind. So a lot of times you can't get give variables because basically the Census Bureau suppresses data when there's not enough. When in this case, it's because the geography is too granular, and it could risk identifying the businesses themselves. So if you wanted to look at key ratios, like how many bakeries are there already in Baltimore City, which is probably the level you'd have to go up to for this to not be suppressed. You could do that. You could just simply. I'm going to close this first. Go to city or town or county, because Baltimore's county equivalent, of course, and then look at some of the other variables that are suppressed simply by scaling up the geography that you select. The other thing that I could do, if I just wanted to stick to my my market, my customers, is I could use a filter, and I could say to the filter, consumer spending is what I want to look at now, and I, of course, am interested in dining out. But if I hit the caret, I'm not just interested in dining out. I'm particularly interested in breakfast. Right, because I'm a bakery. So show me folks who, zip codes that spend at least, let's say, $400 annually on breakfast. And I can apply that filter. And when I do, those that don't meet that criterion will disappear. They won't disappear, but they'll be rendered. They won't be colored anymore. So so you could then see, okay, well, if that is what the consumer spending threshold that is going to be the catalyst for me to make the decision to open this business, well, then I better stick to these geographic areas. Maybe 2102 wasn't the best idea, but some of the neighboring areas might work, or some of the areas north of northern Baltimore, or just north of Baltimore may work, and so on. So I'll pause there to see if there are any questions. Okay. So the other thing you can see, here's the dashboard, and you can see it has some other measures displayed. You could change those other measures if you'd like. It's the same window and with the exact same categories. And then you can also close that and then create a report with just one click. You can see that it's loading, and again, here's your caveat that MOEs will be turned off unless you turn them on. And you can see that there's more information. So if you're putting together a business plan, if you've ever worked with SCORE, the Small Business Administration, the 101 of starting a business is to do your homework and put together a business plan. Well, this is your business plan. You can come with this, and this will have a lot of the data that will demonstrate that you have done your due diligence. You can see that it gives you median household income for your zip code. It lets you contrast that with the state, and then you can see that it also has a business summary about bakeries. Again, a lot of that data are suppressed until you get to the county level, and then it has again that the very bottom will have that consumer spending data that we saw in the dialog box.
Are you? There's just a question. Are we using variable and filter a little bit interchangeably, or are they different?
Am I using variable? Say that again.
Are you using variable and filter?
Oh, variables and filters are two different concepts, because when you use a filter, it shows you your variable. So it's not synonymous with variable, because it shows you your variable, plus it excludes those geographies that do not meet the variables parameters that you set. So again, that when I went to the variable of consumer spending, dining out, breakfast, I had a range. I had parameters of spending, a range from 200 to almost 700, actually much higher, to $775 almost. But I only want to look at businesses. I only want to look at zip codes that have this variable within the parameters that I choose. And I choose to see those that spend between $435 and $774. So it is the variable, but it also filters out, removes those that don't meet the variables parameters that I've selected. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Jen, did that answer your question? And if not, you can feel free to unmute yourself. She's good. Okay, great. So here we are on the Regional Analyst Edition. And again, ostensibly for your, I don't want to, you can allow location access, but I'm not going to. But really you could also use it if you're a small business owner. And
with this app, you can tell this time I'm going up to the county equivalent level, and you can see if I just start typing even just a few characters, it'll start populating what it thinks I'm, moving toward. And so you can see I could also do the metro area. I could do the county of Baltimore. I could pick Baltimore City, the county equivalent, or even the city town. So this is just a Census Bureau taxonomies, but always, because you can get Baltimore City as a county equivalent, the best practice is always to select the county version of Baltimore City and not the city version. And you can see my map is rendering. And the scenario that I have here is that I thought up at, well, first things first. First, I can select my own region, and it doesn't have to be a cluster of counties. It can be a cluster of metro areas, a cluster of census tracts or zip codes, but I'm going to go with counties in this example, in this scenario that I developed. So my region right now only has Baltimore City. I can click edit region. I want to have at least 2 more counties added. So I'm going to pick Baltimore County. So it basically will ask me if I want to add Baltimore County. Once I click on it and I say yes, so add it to my region. And then I want to pick Anne Arundel County. So now I have 3 counties that comprise my region. I can name it, whatever I want. And then I say I'm done editing. And you can see that I can click through and see the discrete parts of my region, right? Right now I'm clicking on Baltimore City, and I know that because that's what's displayed up here. Right now, then I'm clicking on Baltimore County, and then the data for Baltimore County is being displayed. And then the next thing I could do is I could select my industry. And let's say I decide to pick, word on the street is that appliances are really expensive right now. And this may not be the worst time to start, open up a appliance repair business. So you can see that I'm clicking through what are effectively descriptive codes, and then clicking the carrots to get further and further detail until I reach appliance repair and maintenance. And that's the industry I select. I can look at all NAICS sectors. I can look at just 1 or 2. But because I'm going to the county level, I'm less likely to get suppressed data. Plus, these are large, fairly well-populated counties. So now I can look at selecting my variables. And this time, if I go to key ratios, for example, no suppression. Again, because I went higher up on the hierarchy of geographies, so the suppression is not a factor. Plus, of course, these counties are well populated and have a lot of businesses as well. So let me go to businesses. First thing I want to know is not key ratios. What I really want to know is just how many businesses, like the one I want to open, are already out there. So I select that variable. And then I can see that in the appliance repair business, most of them are in Anne Arundel County. There's 18, and I can see that because of my dashboard here that I can collapse or expand. But there's also 8 in Baltimore County and 3 in Baltimore City. So, and then I can select another variable. And maybe I do want key ratios, and how much can I expect to have to pay my employees? And maybe that's the other thing I want to look at. And then I see, average payrolls about 47,000 in Anne Arundel, 54 in Baltimore County, 54,000, and wow, 82,000 in Baltimore City. So which makes sense, because if there's only 3 of you in Baltimore City, you probably have to pay them more. So maybe, so it is useful to look at them in the discrete parts of the region that you selected, but you can also click create region report and see them collectively. So in aggregate, in other words. I'll just show you that real quick. I know I'm running short on time, but here's my region. And now it's giving me a population of estimate of 2 million and change, which is an estimate of all 3 geographies. And then I can see other variables because maybe I want to open up my business in Baltimore City, but I want to serve all 3 areas. And then I can see other variables. Of course, home ownership rate would be important to see, because homeowners are the ones who are going to need these repairs. And then I can see other variables like average payroll employee across the 3 counties is around 49,000. Average, there's about 10 employees per the 29 establishments in the area that I created. And so on. So I guess my example is really just to argue that that this version as well could also be germane and useful to small business owners whose business idea covers a broader swath of their local geography. Any questions as we wrap up?
Thank you so much, Nasreen. And then I think if anybody does have a question, you're